and welcome to episode 22 of Tales from the Bargain Bin. I'm Bill Tucker, and this is the sideshow of A Gamer Looks at 40, where myself and a guest talk about a random game we received as young people that we either loved or hated or didn't expect, but it's one of those weird things that we just kind of appeared. And with me, after a long absence, too long in my humble opinion, is the one and only Joe Coro from Perfect Storm Gaming and Retro Game Guy on YouTube. Joey, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? It has been too long. This is definitely a treat. I miss you. For those who know or may not know, Bill's my best friend, 37 years, and any opportunity I get to have fun with him, I certainly relish.
And you're doing some really cool stuff on both Perfect Storm and on Retro Game Guy, which is really cool.
You too, man. I keep in touch and watch all your stuff on Twitch. You and your wife are incredibly funny. I'm serious. I got Michelle. I got my wife watching also. So no,
I know. I liked her. I liked her. I think I friended her on TikTok, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So that works out. Yeah. If you're listening to this and don't know, my wife and I every Tuesday and sometimes Thursday or Friday, we go on Twitch and we're playing through Fallout New Vegas, and it's been a ride. It's been fun. So we are continuing that journey. But today we are here to talk about, let's be honest, I never thought I'd talk about this game on any platform or any show. This is Joey's pick, and it is Frogger 2, 3 Deep with an exclamation point. 1984 on the Atari 2600. So, Joey, again, your pick. So, what's your history with this game? Why are we talking about this?
So, it's an older game, and I had gotten the console from my uncle at the time. And little known fact for those that don't know, I'm in my mid-40s, and my uncle, you know this, Bill, he's in his mid-50s. He was an uncle very young, and he became like basically a pseudo older brother to me. So during the time of the Sega Master System and the Nintendo, my uncle, he had an Atari 2600. He got it in 79, either 79 or 80. And by 85, 86, he didn't need it anymore. He says, I'll give it to Joseph. And I was like, oh, great. Yeah. Free video game system. Awesome. Right. I'll definitely take it. And then he brings it over. And it's like, what is this? there's a little bit of, I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like plastic. And then over here is some wooden paneling for those that have seen the 2600. Yeah. Yeah, very 79, which at the time was only 6 or 7 years old.
Right.
But for some reason, the jump in stylistically between 79 and 88 when I got it was, it was pretty, it was Herculean. So
88. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I was living in Bloomfield. I was 8 years old, and I had already had the Sega Master System. So to me, this was cool. I was a Sega guy, and which was frustrating, obviously, because Bill knows this, I couldn't play Mario, and I couldn't play Zelda, and I couldn't play Mega Man. And, every time I went to Carteret during lunch, everybody would be talking about all these great games. And it was like, man, I wish I could play these. All I knew is that Sega, for whatever reason, didn't have those games. So when my uncle came and said,
if you want to hear that whole story, episode 3 of this very podcast, you hear all about Joey, a Sega kid on a Nintendo playground. So check out that early episode.
Yeah. So to get this was great. I thought, maybe I can play Mega Man on Atari 2600. Now, obviously, I didn't know any better. I was 8 years old. So I was like, I'll take it. But he brings this thing, as I said, with wooden paneling, and the chords are all weird, and it's not a control pad. It's a joystick, right? And everything about it was just like, it was like kind of a letdown. My father hooked it up on the television. He says, go crazy. And there was really nothing to go crazy about. The graphics were awful. The sound was worse. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, just every game that you played, you never could go anywhere. For whatever reason, that was really big, I guess, during the late 70s, early 80s, where the point to the game wasn't to complete it. It wasn't like the next level and the next level and the next level, and each stage looked different. Every level looked the same. So when I put Space Invaders, when I got to level 2, it looked the same. When I played Pac-Man, level 2 looked the same. Asteroids, Defender, every level looked the same. And it became very apparent to me at 8 years old, this is pointless. This is just, what is the point of this? And, you know, my uncle was trying to make it cool. And he was like, well, you got to beat your score. You got to beat your score, Joseph. So it was, again, that must have been very big during the late 70s, early 80s, but
Joey, the point is points. That is the point.
Yes.
The point is points. That's so
good. You know, growing up.
Yep.
We didn't do that. Every level looked different,
Yeah, Mario and Zelda. This is 88 we're talking about. Like, we are in the prime of the NES. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just kind of left it at the wayside, and like this system is, garbage, for lack of a better term. I mean, now, I'm an adult. There's newfound appreciation that I have for it. But at 8 years old, I'm just like, all right, I went from bad to worse. I went from the Sega Master System to this thing. So forget it. And it sat there. It sat there for months until my uncle came over, some sort of a holiday. And he's like, oh, by the way, I forgot to give you this. I didn't give you this game with the rest of them. This is Frogger 2. So I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. And I tried it out. And Bill, when you get to the next stage, lo and behold, it's a different stage.
Yeah.
And when you get to now I'm in water. And those that have played Frogger 2, the all 6 of you, you know that you're on the water when you're playing level 1, and then when you're on level 2, you're off the water, and the stage stylistically looks different. You're trying to leap from leap pad to leap pad, or turtle, or alligator, and I think there's a stage in the clouds, if I remember correctly. I think there's a stage where you're in the sky and you're leaping from bird to bird. So yeah, I really got into it. The only thing I had trouble with was the joystick, because again, you and I were raised on a control pad.
Right.
But I really got into this thing. I remember people would come over and I would say, hey, check this out. And the kids didn't know what it was. And at the time, let's face it, 84, you said the game came out? I didn't even know that.
84.
So 88, it's still a relatively new game.
I mean, this is end of the 2600 life cycle, I guess, at this point, right? I mean, it's got to be a late 2600 game.
Yeah, by today's standards, it's,
This came out after the crash. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
By any standards, let's face it, 4 years is 4 years. I mean, 2020 was 4 years ago. So by any standards, it's a relatively new game. Graphically, it was the best of my collection, or my uncle's collection, I should say. And no, I couldn't put it down. I played that until I moved, which was when, 90? For 2 years, that had a run. Because of that same reason, because of every level looking different. And I remember thinking, okay, I want to complete this. And this really broadens out to a larger conversation, how for whatever reason, that generation, late 70s I'm talking about, they were fine with trying to beat their own score, the point chasing, as you called it.
Right.
But our generation, it never worked. I mean, is that just me, or were you the same?
I never cared about points. Points was not a thing for me. It never has been. It was always about getting to the next level, beating the boss, and seeing what more the game has to offer. The repetition of early, Asteroids and Defender and Pac-Man just never hooked me. And I think it's because I started with Mario. That's a game that's a progression of levels, and there's different things going on. I guess if I was born maybe 10 years earlier and playing, Frogger, as a 10-year-old, probably different. But yeah, it's definitely a generational thing for sure.
Definitely. And for me, it was something that, you learned at a very young age. Like, this is obviously doing it for my uncle, who's older than me, but not much older than me. But it's certainly not doing it for me. And that was my first foot in the toe in the water, pun intended, because it's now that we're talking about Frogger, it's apropos. And I didn't know that it was a sequel too. I mean, for years afterwards, and people would talk I didn't know it was Frogger 2.
I was going to ask, Yeah, I was going to ask, you never played the original Frogger at the time?
No. Years later, I had played it, and I remember, I mean, years later, I did it probably in college, when emulation was big and ROMs were big. That was my main goal, to try to acquire every movie I ever had digitally, and MP3 music, song, album I ever had digitally during the boom of Napster. And video games, as you know, were no different. I was trying to acquire every video game, or ROM, I should say, digitally. And when of course, I went to go get Frogger, I had played it, and I was like, this isn't it. This isn't.
Right.
And I tried every other version, and I'm just like, what is this? And I think it was my brother at the time that said, Joseph, that's the sequel. The one we got from Uncle was Frogger 2. And I'm like, no, they never made a sequel to Frogger. And they made a sequel to Frogger.
They made a sequel to Frogger in 1984. To describe the game, most people should know the concept of Frogger, right? You're a little frog and you're jumping off from down a street in the original Frogger, I believe, and you're trying to avoid cars and skateboards and whatever other obstacles. Yeah. It's really a timing game where it's actually very challenging. This is not, Frogger ain't easy. And there's been many Frogger games over the years. I think my wife has a Frogger game for the Game Boy Advance. I gotta look this up now. The whole franchise, evidently. But I'd never heard of Frogger 2. When you brought it up, I went ahead and I downloaded the ROM at like a good American, and sure enough, I played 10 minutes of it and said, I got it all. It's all I need. I am not the biggest fan of Atari games. To this day, I don't have a lot of nostalgia for them, and they are more pain than they're worth. I got about 10 minutes in. I said, that's enough for me. I think I got the idea.
It's incredible. When you bring it, and I don't want to veer too off track here, but it's incredible when you look back at the success of that, and great consoles, Genesis, obviously the Wii, obviously the original NES. I'm talking consoles that have just incredible, legendary success. It takes you 5 minutes to play the thing, and you just know, okay, this is why this system was so big. Atari is one of the few that you play it and you're like, and this thing was mega. I mean, it was gargantuan back in the day. You know that.
2600, huge.
And you just play it and you're like, man, for the life of me, I don't get it.
I'm so glad I didn't grow up in the 70s. I'm so glad.
Well, we missed it by a year. We barely got.
Well, I mean, we were born in 1980, so, but we were informative, we weren't playing games until we were 6 and change. And that's 86 and that's Nintendo. Yeah, I just look back at it, and again, I can appreciate it, but I just don't have the nostalgia. I've had they came out with, I think it was a 50th anniversary Atari collection on Steam and Switch and all the other consoles. And it's supposed to be not only like all these old Atari games in a collection, but also stories about how they were made in Atari in those days. It's evidently supposed to be very cool. I've had it in my wish list for years now, and I never pulled the trigger because it hasn't gotten cheap enough yet. But
no, it's great. I'm not. It's a game. I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question. So for those that don't know, it's a game where you're a frog, the original, and you're trying to get across the street. The platform that you're on is the street. And this was the late 70s. And for whatever reason, companies didn't really license their mascots, which is why a lot of them got lost. Sinistar is one of them. Qbert, another great example. These were mega mascots back in the day, and Frogger was one of them. Incidentally, Nintendo nearly lost Mario. They were porting it to Atari via the Donkey Kong, which was on the 2600. But then by the 80s, companies learned, and Nintendo, they did a wonderful job licensing Zelda and Mario, Sega with Sonic, Capcom with Mega Man, etc. But it's a frog that you're trying to get across the street. This is the first one. The first Frogger is you're just trying to get across the street, and you're dodging obstacles, that being cars, trucks, motorcycles, etc. And it's just rinse repeat. As we spoke about, it's point chasing. So level 2 looks like level 1, level 100 looks like level 3, etc. I think it gets a little challenging as far as speed. the objects and obstacles get faster. But Frogger 2, the platform, the plane rather, is not a street. It's level 1 is a pond. You're on a there's a pond that you're walking on. You can walk on it, and you're trying to dodge obstacles that are coming in front of you. And then level 2 is the inverse. It's just the opposite. You can't walk on the pond, and you're walking on these objects. And I'm pretty sure I got to a level where I was in the clouds. I know it sounds crazy because you're
no. There's the third level is the cloud level, and what's interesting about the cloud level is, and actually the water level, is if you fall, you don't lose a life. You just go back down to the previous level. So if you're in the clouds and you fall to the lake, which is the one that you can't go on. If you fall in the lake, you go down to the water, I guess. I don't know how you're going down to the water. The implication is you're underwater now, but it's a pretty neat concept, and there's lots of different. The obstacles are more interactive. So if you hop on top of a bird, it'll take you to a cloud area. If you hop on certain, like the lily pads are one stop only. So as soon as you get off a lily pad, it goes away. There are certain spots on the whales you can hit. You can hit the spout, and they're diving up and down. It's very ambitious for an Atari 2600 game.
You know what, Bill? That's the perfect word. Ambitious.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was one of those games I play. I'm like, this is not terribly fun, but I really respect the hell out of this. This is impressive feat to give all of this variety to standard Frogger, which initially was just avoiding obstacles and moving up a board. So yeah, it's an impressive game.
Now you're jogging my memory. Actually, did you play this years ago, or because of this episode? You said
the only reason I played this was because of you, good sir. It's the only reason. I never even knew this existed until last week when we scheduled this conversation.
Well, I'm convinced that you came over on 16th Street and played it. You probably forgot.
I probably forgot.
Or you're probably being a smart 8-year-old said, what the hell am I playing here?
Joey, you have a Sega Genesis. We could be playing. You have Sega Genesis. You have a Master System. We could be playing Shinobi.
Yeah. Well, there was great games with the Master System. Space Harrier, Shinobi. There was great. The biggest thing, obviously, when I look back at it, that was the most challenging, excuse me, is the joystick, and that was another thing. Like, for whatever reason, like that just was such a leap in just everything when you think about it. When you look at the 80s to 90s, when you look at the Super Nintendo, let's say, versus the NES or the Genesis to the Master System or anything.
Right.
It isn't that big a leap, I mean, yes, you're jumping from 8-bit to 16-bit, but conceptually, you're talking about the same. Graphically, it's just the same, only souped up. It's 2D. The control pad is a control pad. Moving up a level, how to complete a game is the same. But when you look at the 2600 versus the NES, which is only 5 years, what a jump in everything. When you think, it's like they just said, you know what? Screw it. Let's just reinvent the wheel here.
Exactly. Right. And it's those generational leaps I think are really interesting. How some seem like, again, we're talking about Frogger leaps. Get it?
Yeah.
High five. But yeah, you're right. Those leaps really seem different. But you're right. That leap from Atari to just Nintendo and the Master System was monumental. I mean, there was no comparison.
Graphically, it's different. Sound, it's different. The control pad looks different. Right. How we talked about the conception of a game from platforming versus point chasing. Just everything. And it's only 5 years. I've never seen such a shift in how the industry and consoles veered. It's incredible when you think about it.
It really is. I mean, the only thing that's comparable probably would be the 16-bit to N64.
You know what, Bill? That's well said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the N64, I was playing Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, and the next thing I know, there's a demo console in my local Bradley's or wherever, not Best Buy at that time, probably, but maybe Best Buy or Circuit City for a Nintendo 64 where I'm going in 360 degrees with Mario, and I'm like, this is the future. It's here. How does this happen? How did this happen?
It's 3D to 2D.
Yeah. So
the control pad, there's actually a mini joystick.
Yeah.
Save packs, rumble pack. Very well said, Bill. Probably the only thing you can draw a parallel to is the 16-bit to 64-bit.
Yeah, that's really, I think, the biggest leap. And ever since then, it's more incremental because, again, you don't have that shift. It is once again time to say thank you to our wonderful patrons, starting with Terry Kinnair, Games with Coffee, BT Goebbels, Julian of the Stage Select Podcast, Seth Sergil of All In Media, Tim, formerly of The Elitist, the Let's Play Princess, Greg Seward of the Player One Podcast and Generation 16 series of videos, Philip Becker, and finally the one and only fabulous Pete Harney. If you would like to join these amazing human beings in donating your hard-earned funds to this podcast, then by all means go to patreon.com/agamerlooks@4040, check out the tiers, and sign up today. And if not, no worries. A rating, review, or even telling a friend about this series is always greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, and let's jump back into the episode. Frogger is a franchise, as we've discussed. There are a lot of Frogger games, Joey. So if you want to relive Frogger, you can, and across the length and breadth of the video game world, you can enjoy Frogger. I don't have a succinct list, so I'm going to have to pick and choose this from a Wikipedia article, so I apologize. It's not as organized as I'd like. Frogger, of course, the first one was 1981. It was developed by Konami. And then, of course, we have our sequel, Frogger 2, 1984. Released on a bunch of consoles, Joey. It was on the Apple II, Atari 8-bit computers, Atari 2600, 5200, ColecoVision, Commodore 64, and IBM PC compatibles.
Wow.
So Frogger 2 made its way around, as things did in that era.
Never made it to Intellivision. Abonanima, Uncle Gary. That's thanks again.
Yeah.
Never made. That's interesting.
Never made it to Intellivision. Frogger was then re-released in 1997 for the PlayStation and Windows. There was a 1998 Game.com version named Frogger. Do you have a Game.com, Joey?
Of course, yes, I do.
You do.
I got a Game.com. Yeah, it's there was three. There was SN6, and there was Gamecom that Tiger made, and then the third one, which is terrible, is the R Zone. Which,
That's right.
Bill gets a great kick out of.
R-Zone was a Tiger joint. I forgot that. You're right.
Now, this was in the dawn, I should say, of the 3D virtual reality boom craze. For whatever reason, VR was really big in the 90s. And I don't know why, because the tech was so awful. But, Nintendo released Virtual Boy. Sega had their own VR glasses. And Tiger said, yeah, we could do this. And they made the R-Zone.
Which that is a story for another day, the R-Zone. I've actually had an R-Zone on my head. It was Joey's. It was yours, sir. It was your R-Zone. I've strapped that thing to my head. Literally strapped it. And
you didn't get a seizure, which is an incredible feat. Yeah, it's amazing.
And we will do an episode on the Virtual Boy at some point, because I know you are a staunch defender of the Virtual Boy, sir. So we will reconvene for that. If you want a little earlier, so Frogger again, 1997 for the PlayStation and Windows, Game.com 98, and then Frogger 2: Swampy's Revenge was released in 2000 for the PlayStation. Game
Is this true? Or are you pulling my leg?
This is all true. No, this is all, it's online. It has to be true. Windows and Dreamcast. However, if you need something a little more modern from the 2000s, Frogger's got you covered, Joey. In the 6th generation of video game consoles, we started with the colon wars, because everything in the 2000s had a colon. So we had Frogger, The Great Quest in 2001. We had Frogger Beyond in 2002.
The colon wars, but just to be clear, you mean the punctuation and not
punctuation. Yes, no, not the
not direct, not an upper GI series or
right, exactly.
Colonoscopy.
Not the colonoscopy wars of 2000. That's a totally different situation. No, this is not the gastrointestinal wars of that era. This is the colon. Because everything had to be the Great Quest or. We had Frogger's Adventures, The Rescue in 2003. And then we had Frogger Ancient Shadow in 2005. It almost sounds like a Pokemon series now.
It does.
Konami Kids Playground, Frogger Hop, Skip, and Jump for the PlayStation 2.
This is crazy.
And then the Game Boy Advance. I knew my wife had one for the Advance. It had 4 Frogger games.
Oh my gosh.
Frogger's Adventures, Tipple of the Frog. Frogger Advance, The Great Quest. Frogger Adventures 2, The Lost Wand. And Frogger's Journey, The Forgotten Relic in 2003. And then there's some mobile games. Look at that.
I can't believe that there was such a great big franchise. They must have made...
But there's more, because in the 7th generation of video game consoles, we have Frogger on the Xbox 360.
You're teasing me. Are you serious?
No, Frogger 2 and on 360 as well. It was in 2008. Frogger Returns in 2009. Frogger Hyper Arcade Edition.
My gosh.
For the Wii, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, iOS, and Android in 2012. And of course, handhelds were not left out. We had Frogger Helmet Chaos. Frogger Helmet Chaos in 2005. My Frogger Toy Trials in 2006. Frogger Evolution, Frogger Beats and Bounces, Frogger Launch. There's been a lot. If I haven't made the point, if I haven't cemented this home for you, fair listener,
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
A lot of freaking Frogger fingers. The final one I think that was released. We'll just move forward. Check. This is interesting. I will finish with this paragraph. So then the 2010s, we have Froggo Inferno on iOS, Frogger for mobile devices, Frogger 3D for the 3DS in 2011, Frogger Decades for iOS in 2011, Frogger in Toy Town for Apple Arcade in 2019. Joey, if you have access to Apple Arcade, there's a very good chance a Frogger game is at your fingertips, sir.
I can't believe this.
And Frogger and the Rumbling Ruins for Apple Arcade in 2022. There is a modern Frogger game you can play on Apple Arcade, probably right now.
This is unbelievable to me.
And then the wildest of all of them, I'll just end with this. There's a Frogger pinball game. There's another one called Crackout, which I don't even want to know what that is. There's the final one here is Frogger Get Hoppin'. It was a casino game in 2017. So it's very likely if you found yourself down in Atlantic City at Showboat or Resorts or one of those places.
Unbelievable. There's a casino.
You could have gambled on Frogger Get Hoppin', and you just said it, a new version of Frogger, which is probably not going to happen anymore because this system is not going to happen anymore. A new version of Frogger was being planned for the Intellivision Amico. We have come full circle, Joey.
Wait, how can you explain? Dumb this down. How is it new?
The Intellivision Amico. The Amico. You haven't heard of this? Surprised you haven't in your circles.
No, I haven't.
All right, so the Amico is, I don't know if it's dead or not, but it was basically a crowdsourced console that was basically going to be in Intellivision that you could play a modern day Intellivision.
Wow.
Yeah, basically. And it had all Intellivision games, had the television controller with the disc and everything else. It plugged into modern systems. It was basically like a NES Mini or a Super NES Mini before the Intellivision. And it had Intellivision games, and it was going to have original games on it. There was a lot of controversy. It was stalled in development for years and years. Kickstart money that went nowhere and had nothing. It was plagued with issues, and I think as of few months ago, it was pretty much not going to happen. Although the latest is Atari purchased the Intellivision brand and its assets. Amico was not included in the sale, but
2 months ago, I was really excited about that. Yeah.
So it could happen with a different thing, but unfortunately, the Amico was a brainchild of one Tommy Tellerico, I want to say. Is that right? That guy's name? I'm
looking it up right now on my phone. Yeah. I'm going to check more of this out.
My pals at Gamers Week did a lot of coverage on on this console. It was just a poorly planned thing, and it's one of those things that was trying to go on the backs of the Atari small systems and the mini systems. And I don't think there's enough fondness for the Intellivision to warrant its own console, but I don't know. That's where we were at with that. But
I can't believe there were so many Froggers. This is a real franchise. I mean, I'd like to check as far as where they rank revenue-wise. Sounds like a compiler. Frogger might be the Megadeth, if you will, of, where like you see like, oh, this franchise made a lot of X amount of money, but it came on the backs of 38 games that no one knows about. But that's interesting. I had this was really informative and completely educational. I'm not kidding either. I had no idea about that.
Yeah. Are you saying that Frogger is the Cal Ripken Jr. of video games? Just the ultimate compiler?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying it's Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah. He played a lot of games and had a lot of touchdowns, but none of them were good. To no end. To what end? Yeah. That's funny. Parker Brothers was the company that released Frogger 2 and the original Frogger.
Thank you.
Parker Brothers, most commonly known for board games.
Yes.
Such as Monopoly and Clue and Sorry, Risk, Trivial Pursuit, Scrabble, all sorts of other different games. But they did have a video game division where they made, as of my research, 17 different games for the 2600. Basically, that's what they lived off of. So Joey, as a connoisseur of the 2600, a former owner, current owner,
yes.
I'm going to see if you've played any of these 2600 games that were made by Parker Brothers.
Oh, geez.
Let's see how many. Now, mind you, this is going to be challenging.
I doubt many. Yes,
because there was so much stuff made for the 2600.
There was a lot of shovelware. Yep, there was
so much. So we're gonna go through this alphabetically. So first one is Amadar.
I have not played Amadar.
Right, so Drax Night Out. I remember that was actually for the Nintendo. That was actually an NES game.
I was going to say there was a couple that were NES ports. Donkey Kong Kong is Parker Brothers, but yeah, there was no. To answer your question.
Oh, it's actually, hang on one second. It was never officially released. So you had no chance of playing this game, Joey. Okay. Drax Night Out was never officially released. The game featured the sponsorship of the Reebok pump shoe. Remember the Reebok pump?
Oh, big time. That took over the late 80s, early 90s. That was like the cool thing. Talk about groupthink, kids groupthink. Everyone in school had that.
Everyone thought that if you could inflate a balloon around your feet, you could play like Michael Jordan. That was
jump higher.
You could jump higher. Like it was the game Genie for your feet. It was ridiculous. I never had a pair of pump shoes. I had fake ones. I think they were, I promise you, this is not a bit. I think they were called XJ 890s or something. And they had a little bubble basketball on the tongue that you could squeeze. Didn't do anything. It was just there to look like a pump shoe. Of course, I would sit there and
the reality of it was that none of us could afford it. We were both in the same situation. We were living in a duplex in Bloomfield. Blue collar dads. Yeah. So
we went to Academy Shoes and on Bloomfield Ave and bought fake pumps. So I fully remember my XJ. I thought those were just the bee's knees. I would just sit there in Carteret and gym class pumping my fake pump shoes. Like, oh, dude, no one knew. Idiot.
We were on the basketball team, if you remember, third grade basketball team.
I remember this to my son. This is going to be a bit of an aside, but my son is at a basketball camp this week. He's taken a liking to basketball, and he's doing very well. And he asked me, "Daddy, did you play basketball?" I said, "I tried, son. I tried." Me and Uncle Joey, we in third grade tried our hand at basketball. I think
we remember we were trading Garbage Pail Kids and Bazooka Joe comics.
Yeah, and you score. I think did you ever score a basket? I never scored a single basket.
I think I scored one basket.
You scored one basket. Either
probably was obnoxious about it.
Oh, I saw you on your latest Perfect Storm Arcade Crashers. You playing Daytona and. All I could think was like, Joey's been doing that since we were in third grade. Like, this is no surprise to me.
I was telling my friend, it says, I'm stunted, and I'm man enough to admit it. It's called arrested development. I says, but my best friend's aware of it, and he's too good a person to to let on that he knows that I know that he knows. But I can only imagine what ruminates in his head. Like, yeah, this is my crazy friend from Jersey who's perpetually 16.
This is it. When people in Texas say, "Hi, I never met someone from New Jersey," I say, "Well, hold my beer because I have some. Let me show you these videos. This is Jersey personified. This is right here." Screaming baby.
Oh, shit.
Anyway, diversion. But yes, my son is playing basketball now, and I had to tell him that like, no, Daddy was not very good at basketball. I never scored a single basket. You scored once, and we lost our minds. And Paul Willie scored once, and we lost our minds. We celebrated like we'd won a championship. We literally, it was the greatest moment. Living vicariously through my also unathletic friends. So
Amazing.
next one on the list was G.I. Joe Cobra Strike for the 2600.
I played, yes, that I played. My uncle didn't have it. I didn't play it. Let me be clear. I didn't play it in '88 when I got the console, but I played it on a ROM years later in college. Yeah,
that's fine. James Bond 007 for the Atari 2600 and 5200. It was on a couple other systems as well.
Never played that. No.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings Journey to Rivendell. What? I don't think
that's got to be a typo. Yeah, that can't be.
I don't think this was released either. Let's see here. It was a video game scheduled to be released in the winter of '83. Parker Brothers was set to publish it and advertised it, but I don't think it ever came out. It never came out.
Wow. Okay. So that's another wrinkle in my brain. I thought Peter Jackson, I thought that was a new franchise. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That was never released. It was released right around the crash and it just never saw the light of day. Monopoly 1991 for the Game Boy. Game Boy Monopoly.
I played, I think we both had that. I know I had that. Yeah. I had Monopoly for the original brick Game Boy.
We Good have game. Also, if you want to just do childish humor, Montezuma's Revenge.
I did not play that. There's a part of me, a small part of me that thinks he's kidding. You can tell me anything right now.
I know. I can be like
Johnny Ruth and the 5 Manure Kickers, Joey. Have you ever tried that? No, I have not played that one.
This is legitimately a real thing that I tell only the truth on this program. I'm just gonna skip that one. Very good. Q*bert, and we're talking arcade Q*bert. I think the Q*bert this must have been the Atari port.
My uncle had that one. Yeah, that was one. He had a sizable library. It wasn't just like he gave me the console with nothing. He gave him. I had Pac-Man, I had Defender, I had Asteroids, I had Pong, I had Q*bert, I had obviously Frogger 2. I'm convinced if we jogged your memory or got you in front of a hypnosis, someone that could really bring out the old derelict trauma. Memories,
trauma.
That can recall them. I'm convinced you played it, but I mean, you came over and I definitely. Knowing me, said, "Hey, check this out." You know, that was always my modus operandi. Try to give everyone like, "Oh, look at this." I got something
totally.
You never heard of. Yeah.
At the risk of this bit going too long, I'm just going to rattle off the last few of these because there's actually a couple of good ones on this list. So we have Reactor, which I don't know this game. It was an arcade game initially, and it was imported. Return of the Jedi Death Star Battle. That's a damn good game. That's a good game.
I'm stunned that Parker Brothers. Wow, I didn't know that.
Parker Brothers joint.
They produced that. Wow, interesting.
Parker Brothers joint. And another one, which actually just recently came up with a coworker who bought an emulation system just to play this game, Spider-Man on the Atari.
That I never played. Wow.
Yeah, I don't. The only reason is I know she sometimes listens to the show, Natasha. It's come full circle. Atari Spider-Man was developed by the same people who did Frogger 2. There you go. We've now connected so many threads. Star Wars Jedi.
This is literally like 6 Degrees with Kevin Bacon. We've connected. Yeah.
And then we'll just go through real quick. Star Wars Jedi Arena, Star Wars Return of the Jedi Ewok Adventure, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
I played
Atari,
that.
Which is another good game. That's a good game. And Super Cobra, which I don't know that one.
I didn't play that one, no. No.
Parker
So
Brothers.
I guess I had 3 or 4,
Yeah,
maybe
4.
3 on the list. Not bad.
Yeah, 4. Not bad. Listen, better than I have. Again, this was not my era at all. Boy, oh boy.
This is awesome. I didn't know any. I appreciate this. Especially, I'm going to go to Delta after we hang up and download some of these great ones. So
yeah, see what else Parker Brothers has up there.
I want to be clear to the patrons listening. We started this and it was like, well, how much fodder? Can we really talk at length about Frogger 2?
Yeah,
it's 40 minutes deep now, folks.
We're 40 minutes in. Yeah,
the answer is yes.
Of course we can. There's a rich. Well, I knew there was a lot of Frogger games. I didn't realize how many there were. I'll have to put some chapters in here so people, if they don't want to hear the laundry list of Frogger games, they can just skip that perhaps. But and I also downloaded the manual. I always find the manuals of games fascinating. I love video game manuals. If I collected things, I don't collect anything. It probably would be video game manuals. I don't even care about the box. I just love a good manual.
I'm the same way. I love it.
The manual for the Frogger 2 for the Atari 2600 is not good. I have seen technical manuals on PC equipment that's more exciting than the plain text of Frogger 2. So there's not much here. But let me see if I can entice you to play this game by the opening paragraph, because now mind you already bought the game.
Oh Lord.
Right? So I mean, it's not like, well, let's see, hang on one second. Let me try Frogger 2, Atari 2600 box. I'm always curious, how do companies get you to buy these things?
I never got the boxes or the manuals or the artwork. I had gotten the console, 2 control pads, the hookup cords, obviously, and my uncle gave me like 14 games in a shoebox. So
luckily for us, the copy on the back of the Frogger 2 box is the exact same copy that's inside the manual. So perfect. This works out perfect. So here it is. Let's see if this tantalizes you. And folks at home too, if you want to play this is now your chance. This is how Parker Brothers has decided to sell this game to you. Look who's resurfaced in an all-new adventure. It's Frogger. 3 distinctly different screens take our fearless frog on another homeward-bound journey, but this time it's underwater, over water, and through the air. But notice how it advertised 3 screens. That was a big deal for the Atari. 3 multiple screens.
I'm waiting for you to finish. Is that it? Are you done?
No, I'm not done yet. I'm only halfway through.
Yeah.
Frogger must swim against strong currents, whisk over whales and hippos, sidestep submarines, spring from cloud trampolines to high-flying birds, and so much more. So, Frogger lovers, kiss your lily pads goodbye and get set for some fast and frantic fun.
So, to answer your question, yes. You had asked me, you said, would this touch your, I forget the vernacular, tantalize. Would this tantalize you to buying it? The answer is yes. No.
Yes.
And you picked out the sentence, because as a gamer hearing, okay, there's 3 different I'm just not playing the same level over and over again. That would sell. That's the hook. So yes,
that is the hook. And they said that earlier, which is great. 3 distinctly different screens.
Yep.
Distinctly different screens. That is really, it's a selling point for sure. My friend.
Ambitious. I'm sorry to cut you off. Ambitious. No. You had said that earlier. You said this was an ambitious game for Atari 2600. And Bill, you have a way, I always said, of encapsulating things simplistically. And you did it. You nailed it. That is the term. It was Atari's probably most ambitious game that they released on the console.
I am a simple man, so that makes perfect sense, sir. So thank you. What I usually end these episodes with, we kind of already wrapped it up. I'll just end it real quick with this. Joey, Frogger 2, 3 deep, which I get it now, because it's got 3 screens. That's why it's called 3 deep.
Dude.
Damn, I'm sitting here. Why is it 3 deep? I've been thinking about this for 24 straight hours, probably. In the back of my mind, just thinking, why is it called 3 deep? It's got 3 screens. That's
you nailed it. That's it. That's the reason.
Joey, Frogger 2, do we, in this day and age, in the year of our Lord 2024, are we taking this game home, or are we putting it back in the bargain bin?
I'm taking this home. There were several games of the 14 or some odd that my uncle gave me that I completely discarded, played once, and then never played again. Frogger 2 is not one of those games. So yes, I am taking this home. Please give it a go for those that are listening. If you're bored and it's an easy enough ROM to download, you want to check it out, I definitely encourage you to do so.
Yeah, and I'm going to say we bring it home as well. As much as I played it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is an Atari game. I don't like it. There is something to it. And I think there's something admirable about it. And again, the ambition behind it is it's great. So I really respect it. So yeah,
I figured you and I have always been in sync with most things. So yeah,
I agree with that. Joey, tell the fine folks at home where they can find you right now on the internets doing video game things.
Yep. So I'm on Perfect Storm Gaming with my co-host Vito Versus, and my other co-host Multi Mike. You can find us there on YouTube, Perfect Storm Gaming. And I'm also on Retro Gaming Guy with my buddy Chase. I do some bits for him, some reviews and products. And we do a show called Retro Live every Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we've got some great guests and giveaways. It's always a great time. He's a great guy. So you can catch me on those two places. And I'll be lurking every once in a while, the Phantom of A Gamer Looks at 40 as well.
The ever looming phantom of A Gamer Looks at 40. You never know. I need like a little soundboard of you, just like insert like you going, hey, or yelling, going, just say something, insert you like a Where's Waldo of the show.
Random Tourette syndrome, Joey. You got it. No problem.
Just record random utterances, Joey.
Yeah.
And I can just, yeah. And we'll do that for like a few episodes. Just see who can pick it out. Just
what? It's a deal. I promise you.
I am weird enough to just do that. And people are like, there's a weird artifact in one of your episodes. Like,
this guy's the best, though. There's no one better than Bill. I'm not just saying that. 37 years, salt of the earth, and he knows that. So
I appreciate that, brother. All right, that does it for this edition of Tales from the Bargain Bin. If you enjoyed this madness, wow, and if you've made it this far, double wow. Greatly appreciated. There are 21 other episodes of this sideshow out there. We cover a whole bunch of games with a whole bunch of stories and a whole bunch of diversions like we had today. If you enjoyed the show, then go to agamerlooksat40.com. 40 has all of my everything there, including a section for full series playlists, where my full series, you can go there and check out my full series on The Legend of Zelda, Earthbound, Tales from the Bargain Bin, and Final Fantasy, all in one place. You can just sit there and binge it for hours while you're doing whatever it is you do during your workday other than work. Thanks again, Joey, for joining me on this particular show. And until next time, just be kind to yourselves and each other.